This grainy footage, his fleeting smile, just a few things Mandeep Singh has to show from his otherwise traumatic journey when he tried to get to the US using the dunki route.
जी प्लान तो देखो जी, प्लान तो किसी का भी नहीं होता। वो यही सोचते हैं कि आगे लाइफ सेट हो जाए, ठीक है जी। मैं कल्ला नहीं, सारी यंग एज जितनी भी है सारी यही सोचती है जी, और जी इसके चक्कर में घर से निकल पड़े जी। आगे जो होगा देखा जाएगा जी।
The motivation was clear. These fancy homes in his village that belonged to those who now live in the US. Mandeep wanted that for himself too. He paid a heavy price for chasing his American dream. He didn't even reach the US. He sold an acre of his farmland to fund his travel plans and his American dream. His journey started in Amritsar. 28 of them were together when they went to Dubai and then Oman. From Egypt to Libya, he boarded a cargo flight, but there were no seats. Just desperate people like him. An estimated 250 of them, many of them forced to stand through the entire journey. From Libya to Italy was a dangerous boat ride, the first of many unsafe, unsure journeys he would undertake over the next many weeks.
समुंदर में 50 बंदे की शिप थी, उसमें 200-250 बंदा बैठ जाता था। जैसे पहले स्टार्टिंग में रूम में गए थे, 15-20 दिन में रूम में कैद थे हम, मतलब कि ये जी इधर है लीबिया में जो आपको बता सकें। आगे जैसे जैसे चलते गए, कंटेनर था, कंटेनर में 15-20 दिन रहे थे कि आगे जब हम जा रहे थे। अगर टैक्सी वाली गेम लेनी है, हमने तो पैसे टैक्सी के दे रखे थे, एजेंट ने आगे कंटेनर में बैठा दिया। एक कंटेनर में कम से कम 150 बंदा था, खड़े हो गए बिल्कुल ऐसे। कम से कम है जी, आप लगा दो ब्राजील से कोलंबिया तक 4000 किलोमीटर, 3500 किलोमीटर खड़े हो गए। 15 दिन ट्रक में रहे थे जी, उसी के अंदर खाना पीना जो भी है, इतने बड़े बड़े टुकड़े मांस के, ठीक है, पता नहीं किस चीज का जानवर का मांस था, वो खाना पड़ा जी। लेडीज भी नहीं साथ में।
By the time he got to the Darien Gap to cross through the dangerous jungle between Colombia and Panama, known as the world's most dangerous migration route, he was running out of food, money, energy and hope.
जी रास्ता तो देखो जी 18-20 किलोमीटर का रास्ता है जी, और वो ही जंगल की बात करें तो वो ही फिर इतना खतरनाक है जी, वो ही क्रॉस करना बहुत औखा हो जाता है, क्योंकि वहाँ उड़ जाता बंदा। एक जगह से चलेगा दूसरी, क्या होता वहीं पे घूम करके आ जाए। दिल्ली साइड के थे 2-3 लड़के लड़कियां भी रही, वो तो खुद ही कह देते थे हमसे चला नहीं जाता, हम आप जाओ आके जाए, जो नहीं चला जाएगा बैठ जाएगा, वो तो फिर मौत ही है उसकी। तो कोई भूख की वजह से जी, कोई इन्फेक्शन की वजह से, वहाँ कोई भी दिक्कत आ गई, या कुछ शरीर पे मेरे दाने हो गए थे थोड़े थोड़े, हमारी भी इतनी वो उम्मीद नहीं थी बचने की। वो इतने जहरीले दाने होते ना जी, वो एक भी दाना फूट गया तो जहर ही फैल जाएगा अंदर।
His American dream ended in Panama, where he was taken into custody and deported on the first transcontinental flight with 130 other Indians on board.
जी देखो जी, ऐसे कहने से तो कोई नहीं हटेगा जी। जैसे मैं अपनी आंखों से देख के आऊँ तो मेरा मन नहीं करता जी दोबारा जाने।
From a story of despair to one of pride, we go back to the December of 1971 when India clinched a crucial victory just hours after war was officially declared with Pakistan.
It was the first night after war was officially declared between India and Pakistan on December 3rd, 1971. Some 24 odd fishermen, unaware of the war or the emergency orders, had set out to sea. It was after midnight when they said they heard a loud explosion and saw a massive column of water shoot out into the air and then fall like rain on their boats. The next morning, curiosity brought them back to the spot where they found remnants of India's first victory in the war against Pakistan, the wreckage of PNS Ghazi. The sinking of Pakistan's prize submarine off the coast of Visakhapatnam remains one of the most iconic naval victories in India's maritime history. What was initially seen as a suicide mission for the Indian Navy turned into a triumph of strategy, deception, and meticulous execution. Now, PNS Ghazi, Pakistan's only long-range fast-attack submarine leased from the US, was tasked with a critical mission to hunt and destroy India's aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, which had already been moved to a secret location in the Andaman Islands. The stakes were high, and Pakistan relied heavily on Ghazi's success. But Indian naval intelligence intercepted signals which revealed Pakistan's plans to them. As Ghazi trawled the waters between Chennai and Vizag, the Indian Navy used a very clever decoy strategy. They dispatched an aging World War II destroyer INS Rajput, pretending to be Vikrant. The destroyer's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Inder Singh's response to the suicidal mission was firm. "Sir, I am ready to take the challenge," he said. In fact, he declared that whether I return or not, INS Rajput will return for sure. The trap was set. Singh then sailed 160 miles out of Visakhapatnam harbour and generated heavy wireless traffic to give Ghazi the impression that Vikrant was close by. Within hours, they intercepted the frequency of PNS Ghazi coming with home target torpedoes and fired 2 depth charges from the ship. Moments later, there was a series of massive underwater explosions, sending shockwaves through the water. 2 days later, divers from INS Akshay were sent to investigate, and they discovered the wreckage of a submarine which was later confirmed to be PNS Ghazi. Now, there are 2 versions of what actually happened that night. The Indian version is that the INS Rajput's depth charges struck the submarine, and then the shockwaves spread to the compartment where the mines and torpedoes were stored, causing a massive explosion. Or the depth charges might have triggered a mine that was kept in a ready state near the torpedo tube. The Pakistani version, however, is that Ghazi might have misjudged her position and then doubled back into her own minefield, accidentally detonating them. As for INS Vikrant, it played a commanding role in India's strategy to cripple Pakistan's eastern supply routes and blockade enemy ports to prevent reinforcements. The day Ghazi fell, Vikrant's aircraft controlled the skies, their airstrikes precise and relentless. The multiple waves of attacks tripled Pakistan's ability to move supplies, troops, and equipment. Chittagong port was rendered inoperable, while the bombardment of Cox's Bazar destroyed Pakistan's fallback supply lines. What the strikes also did was isolate Pakistan's eastern command, disrupting troop movements, supply chains, and morale. This historic event played a crucial role in shaping the outcome of what was perhaps the most consequential war in the region, which ended with the surrender of Pakistani forces just a few days later on December 16. Pakistan was split in 2 and Bangladesh was born.
Staying with tales of India's glorious past, author William Dalrymple speaks of a time when Roman gold was pouring into ancient India.
In the ancient world, India was the principal trading partner of the Roman Empire. And if you go back to the classical authors, you find that, in fact, Pliny says very clearly that the gold of the West is draining into Indian pockets. These are luxury products that your Indian trading ancestors charged the Romans top dollar for. First of all, what did India trade? So there's one particularly illuminating document which has turned up in Egypt over the last 20 years, is now in Vienna, called the Muziris Papyrus. It is a complete detailed shipping invoice, and it gives an incredibly detailed account of one container traveling on one ship, the Hamapollon, that happened to leave India in the mid-1st century AD. This container contained 2 tons of ivory, which was the highest value product, pepper, vast quantities of pepper, silk, cotton, and something called nard, which is a Himalayan product which is used in perfumery and was highly expensive and considered to be a complete luxury object. All these things were luxury objects. You didn't need any of these things from India. And there's a wonderful account by Pliny, who is a recognizable type even today. He's the naval commander, and you can find his sword probably about a mile from here in the Gymkhana, propping up the bar at this moment. And he's sitting there harumping about decadent ladies in Rome who use this newfangled foreign textile called silk which you can see their limbs through it, this decadent, unnecessary, expensive. This is what happens to our gold. These women spend it on silk. And then he says, then there's this other newfangled stuff, this black powder that people are putting on their food. And it gives food a certain pungency. What's wrong with olive oil, he says. And so you get the impression this is slightly like getting stuck in duty-free in Heathrow when your flight is delayed and you end up buying the really expensive whiskey that you can't afford from Japan, the expensive French scent and all the other sort of luxuries that you then feel guilty about and sit around in your house. And that is what this Muziris papyrus reveals in great detail, because not only do we have a list of the exact quantities in this one container, we have the exact price of each, plus what the Roman state was taking as the customs take, which is another column in this document. So what it shows, and this was the most surprising thing, was the cost. Everyone knew that there was a pepper trade. Everyone knew that ivory was imported. We've got the yakshi from Pompeii, for example, that obviously arrived from India. What no one knew is how much people were paying for this. And if this one container did make it safely to Alexandria, and we have no notion of whether it actually was dispatched or arrived, just that we have the invoice, then the importer would have had enough money to buy the largest estate in Egypt or central Tuscany and enough spare change to join the Senate. So with one successful trading venture like this, it's a large scale. I mean, 2 tons of ivory is in any period of history a considerable haul. But this one crate, this one container, would have made you the Elon Musk of Alexandria. And even more important, it shows that the take on the customs was so colossal, a third of the value of this. If this was happening 250 times in every trading fleet, they're now estimating that maybe between a third and a fifth of the Roman budget came from the customs on the Red Sea. So not only was India enriched by this trade, the Roman state was enriched through the customs. So exactly and this puts Pliny's complaint into perspective, because everyone was paying ridiculous sums of money for these rare foreign commodities that were arriving in quantities through the Red Sea ports.
And before we go, here's a quick eye-opener on Bihar's Bijli and Batti.